Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I just wanted to make a video discussing the results of the Eaton M90 Supercharger porting that I did in a previous video. If you haven't watched that video yet, there'll be a link in the description to go check that out. But first, it'd be good to give you a bit of context. So I'll show you a video from last year. This is turn 2 at Queensland Raceway. It's a fast-paced corner. I usually take the corner in third gear, and that's what it is in this video. You can hear how hard the supercharger's working to generate 10 PSI on the 1UZ. From that video, there's some pretty loud screaming coming out of that supercharger, which is pretty cool, but the downside to that is, and it always has been, that it produces high intake air temps. Now that's a 2.4 inch pulley on the front of that thing. On an L67 motor, that's supposed to create like 20 PSI, which would be absolutely ridiculous, but on a 1UZ the harmonic balancer is a lot smaller in diameter, so with the driver over driven ratio it only ends up making 10 PSI with that 2.4 inch pulley. Now 10 PSI may sound like relatively low boost, and you're probably right, but the thing to remember about this whole setup is that was never designed to be installed on this motor. So it was designed to be on a 3.8 litre, we've installed it on a 4 litre motor, and we've also increased the RPM of the supercharger to generate 10 PSI here. So the problem with that is all compressors are designed to run within a range of efficiency, and what we've essentially done by setting this up is push it a little bit outside of that efficiency window. The further you go out of that window, you decrease efficiency. So the result of that is that the intake air temps on these things start to rise, and obviously the further that you push it, the worse that the efficiency level gets. Now if we refer back to that video that I showed you a moment ago, we'll be able to use that as a point of reference. Now on average, that corner in third gear, it would generate intake temps of around 115 to 120 degrees Celsius, which is significantly hot. Now these conditions are far from ideal, and on a stock tune, this engine would suffer severe engine detonation. But as luck has it, I have a Haltech Elite 2000 ECU installed in this car, which means that I'm able to run it safely. The way I've achieved that is I've worked with my tuner and we have a correction map installed, so as intake air temperature rises, we pull ignition timing, and that makes it so basically we can avoid detonation. Now it's probably a good time to note that I also have adaptive knock control set up in the ECU. We use it as a fail-safe basically to identify if we experience engine knock, and it will also pull timing to suit. And yeah, I'm happy to say that we've been able to check through the ECU and we've never experienced knock on the track, which is great. It's a testament to how good the correction map is in the ECU and how well the tuner's done his job. So after returning home from that race weekend, I was really happy with how the car performed, but I was still determined to try and reduce those intake air temps. Now it's one thing to be able to run the car reliably all weekend by having that correction map in place, but the one issue with pulling ignition timing is that you lose horsepower. So I decided that I wanted to make a bit of an effort to try and reduce those temps and gain some extra ponies. So I was at this point decided that it was time that I wanted to port the Eaton M90 Supercharger. I'd heard some very promising figures on forums and just from talking to people about increasing the efficiency for porting them. Sounded like exactly what I was after, so we decided to give it a go. Now it's time for a bit of backstory though on why people decide to port these superchargers. Now if you take notice of the later revisions of the superchargers, the Gen 5 models, you'll actually notice that the discharge outlet on the bottom of them is a nice large triangular smooth shape, no obstructions. Now if we compare that to the Gen 3 blower here, you'll actually see that towards the larger end of the discharge outlet, there's two large lumps of aluminium there, and they were there originally because the two lower bolts that bolt the snout on to the body of the supercharger, well, it had threads in there that were encapsulated. Now they obviously changed the design of the whole supercharger body to accommodate to open that up in the later revisions. So essentially, by getting rid of those large lumps in the Gen 3 and smoothing it all out, you're trying to reach the same efficiency as those Generation 5 superchargers. Now I'd read through a lot of forums and a lot of people have been stating that this mod frees up restriction by up to 25%. Now I was very skeptical about those results, as it seemed like that was a lot of gain for not a lot of change in supercharger discharge outlet design. To be honest, I just thought I figured I'd give it a go and decide for myself. Now let's fast forward quite a few months and we finally actually got the opportunity to take this thing back to the track and see how it performed. Now take these results with a grain of salt, as this is purely my experience and the testing was actually done at a different track compared to last time. So we'll flash forward to a quick video now performed at Benaraby a couple of weeks ago. again, the car performed flawlessly all day, and I did notice some improvements after the porting. Unfortunately, I didn't get to log any graphs as I was a bit unprepared on the day, but I did make a point of keeping reference of the air temps on longer drifts. Now, a variable that I had to take note of, unfortunately, was the track's a fair bit smaller than Queensland Raceway, obviously, so I had to keep the car in second gear on each lap. But I did make sure to have sustained drifts, holding the car at 7 grand, and take note of the temperatures as I was doing it. Now, with that being said, much to my surprise, I couldn't get the air temperatures to rise any higher than 95 degrees Celsius all day, even while deliberately abusing the car on purpose, and yeah, just holding it flat out all the way through the course. I would just be linking up. Sometimes I'd do 3 or 4 laps in one succession. That's not something that I do at Queensland Raceway. Usually it's a section for maybe a minute at best where you're sort of going. This was quite a few minutes at a time, just holding it in second, pinned, maximum RPM to try and get that air temp up, and yet not any higher than 95, which was super impressive. Now, one of the good things about all this is that the results were extremely consistent, and it was very pleasing to find out that it obviously had a substantial effect in reducing the restriction and turbulence coming out of that supercharger, hence dropping intake air temperatures. So that means from dropping from 120 to 95 degrees Celsius gives us a reduction in air temperature by approximately 20 degrees, which is incredible. In regards to extra performance, I really didn't feel any drastic changes on the day, and realistically I put this down to tuning. I can't remember what the interval scale was that was set up to pull ignition timing based on what temperatures, as it was a long time ago and I haven't checked it since, but I'm sure with a retune we'd be able to take full advantage of these lower air temps and then add timing back into it and gain more power as a result. So that being said, I recommend anyone with one of these Gen 3 M90 superchargers, you should do this mod as it makes a really, really big difference. Not only for reliability, but you have the potential to make more power based on your tune. Now, with all that out of the way, it's time to discuss what the plan is at this stage for future improvements to the car. I have been designing a water air intercooler to go below that M90 supercharger here on the channel, but if you'd watched the last video, you'd probably heard me talk about the Eaton M122 supercharger that I've got here just sitting out of the camera's view, and I had planned on installing this, but realistically with the schedule I've got, it's not going to happen anytime soon, and I've decided to take a bit of a slightly different route. Now, I've got quite a bit of work to finish on this car in the next 8 weeks before it goes for its tune on the 2nd of August. We're doing E85 flex fuel tune, and I've got extractors for it and a couple of things to go on the car. And yeah, so I've got me thinking about the schedule, and that's why I decided to leave the M122 supercharger for a bit, and we'd also postponed the 100mm water to air intercooler for the M90. But I thought it'd be good to have something there that was quick and easy to bridge the gap that would be beneficial for the tune. So I've decided that I'm sort of going to take a look back to my original idea that I talked about with the intercooler, and that's just a sandwich plate to go underneath that there. So I've actually already designed it and made it. There'll be a video of that dropping shortly, and yeah, great cool little project. Didn't cost much, and yeah, very short on time, and it'll just go straight on top of that manifold and underneath that M90. So hopefully we get some good gains out of that one. So if you've enjoyed today's video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you perform this Eaton M90 porting process yourself, I'd love to hear your feedback and what your experience was with it. So make sure to leave that in the comments. So thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you next time.